Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Marcia McNutt, President of the American Geophysical Union, and I have the honor tonight of announcing the agency speaker. This has become a tradition at the AGU meetings for the Committee on Public Affairs to invite one of the heads of one of the groups that has major influence over the type of science that's done at the AGU to come and speak and give an agency perspective on the future hopes and dreams of that agency. Tonight I have the pleasure of introducing Admiral Conrad Lautenbacher, who has recently been confirmed as the new Administrator for NOAA and Undersecretary for Oceans and Atmospheres within the Department of Commerce. Admiral Lautenbacher was born and raised in Philadelphia, and he attended Annapolis, the U.S. Naval Academy. After graduating from there, he studied applied math at Harvard, receiving there his master's and PhD in applied mathematics. He became, in the Navy, rose to become Deputy Chief of Naval Operations and was commander of the 3rd U.S. Fleet. He was director of the Office for Program Appraisal and achieved quite some distinction there. He did operational tours in Vietnam and in the Persian Gulf. Just before being confirmed as the new director of NOAA, he was president of CORE, and I can assure you from his short stint there that the Admiral is a very quick study, so I expect that we'll all see him coming up to speed and taking the reins of NOAA in absolutely no time at all. Tonight I understand the Admiral would like to spend only about 20 minutes speaking to you about some of his ideas from NOAA, and then he's going to open up the microphone for questions from the audience. So I think this would be an excellent opportunity for everyone here to direct at the Admiral your questions and your thoughts on NOAA, and a great opportunity to get your input in at a very early time. When we open up the microphone, you can see the microphone's just at the end of the corridor here. So after the Admiral is finished speaking, anyone who would like to pose a question, why don't you just line up there at the microphone, and we'll take questions in the order that people have lined up. This presentation is being webcast, and your questions and answers will also be webcast, and that's why we're asking everyone to please use that microphone in stating your questions. Okay, without further ado, Admiral Lautenbacher.
Dr. McNutt, Dr. Spillhouse, members of the AGU Community on Public Affairs, distinguished members of the Society, our union, and friends, good evening or good afternoon, whatever you like. For me, it's evening, since I started in Washington at 5 o'clock this morning. It's evening. For you, it may be afternoon. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here with you. As you may know, from Dr. McNutt's introduction, I was sworn in as the 9th Administrator of NOAA on Monday. I have now spent more time in an airplane than I have in my office, so I don't have a great deal of wisdom to bring to you from the Department of Commerce at this point, but I thought it was very important to come out here to talk with you, to let all of you see who I am, to describe some of my personal feelings, and give you a chance to talk with me. I believe that the work that we do in the science community requires a strong dialogue and a partnership between all of the scientists who work in this area, whether they're within the government, whether they're within NOAA, or they're working in the private sector, academia, or industry. The challenges that we face in this beginning of the new millennium are considerable, and they will require everybody's talent working together. First, allow me to say how much I appreciate the skill, the talent, and the experience that are gathered in this room today, and likewise in the entire organization that is AGU. I really believe that the leadership of the United States in scientific endeavors is clearly a result of the intelligence and dedication that's represented here today and within this great organization. We have the best science in the world, and it's you all who are responsible for it. I'm also very pleased to know that many of you work with or are associated in some way with NOAA. a team of which I have now been a proud member since Monday, as I mentioned. And thus, while I'm here to share some thoughts with you, I really would like to start a dialogue where we talk with each other. I would like to hear from you today, and I would like to hear from you in the future. One of my top priorities is to ensure that we can all be participants in a continuous open dialogue that will help to improve our federal scientific portfolio. And in particular for me, how can NOAA best contribute to improving science? I think those of you that know me or have looked at my background in the Navy will find that I'm a good listener. I'm a person that believes in two-way dialogue, and I want to hear your thoughts on things. There's a reason for that. I mean, listening and dialogue and communications builds partnerships. It builds people who understand each other and who can work for a particular goal. The more energy, the more mass, the more focus that you can gain on a particular issue, the better off you are. The greater your chances of actually making something happen rather than just talking about it, which is what I'm interested in. Only by working together can we achieve that. I have found out, I guess the hard way, that you can never have too much in the way of communication. And I learned that as a young man many years ago on the bridge of a destroyer with the captain standing there, and we were coming into Pearl Harbor, and he said, well, hey, would you like to take it in? And I said, sure, this is great. So we looked at the chart. We knew where we were. I knew where I was going, and he knew where he was going. And we stood there, and I took the con, and he said, well, I want you to head towards a certain point on the pier down at the far end of West Lock, and East Lock, rather. And so I said, fine, that's where we're going. Well, I started looking at this point, and I thought, that's not really the right point. But okay, he's a captain, he knows what he's doing, it must be okay, and we'll do this. That's fine, we'll do it his way, obviously. He's the old man. Of course, the old man, he was half my age, and I was probably half his age at that time. So when you call him the old man, everything is relative. So I kept heading towards this point. I felt this is not right, you know. So finally, I said he asked me, "Are you heading towards that point?" I said, oh, "Absolutely." And then I said to him, "Yeah." And then finally said, "No." I said, "That point over there," and I described it. And he says, "No, it's this point over here," which is the one I wanted to go to anyway. So all of a sudden, you know, all stop, left 10 degrees rudder, and let's regroup. But after that, I learned that, you know, maintaining silence when you don't really understand what's going on can be very detrimental. And it's going to be hard in the bureaucracy, because the bureaucracy is like a ship. It takes a long time to get it going. It takes a long time to stop it and turn it around. So unless you're working together on the way, you are not going to be able to change course. And I certainly am not going to be able to change course in a year or two without a good start and help from the folks that are in this audience tonight. Let me just describe my background to you. Many of you know me, but many of you do not. And I realize this is unusual that a NOAA administrator has not been picked directly from the community, and so therefore you've had less of a chance to know who I am. I consider myself sort of part scientist, part sailor, and part bureaucrat. So that's what I bring with me. I have a great love of the sea. As a naval officer, I'm a ship driver, a surface warfare officer. I've spent my time at sea. I have great appreciation for the oceans and the atmosphere, I can tell you. If you're running a major naval operation, the first thing you want to know are the atmospheric and the ocean environmental conditions for the safety of the sailors and the men and women involved, and for the efficiency of that operation. That's the critical key factor in starting any military operation or training exercise. So I'm a great believer in understanding the oceans and the atmosphere. I'm also a great believer in protecting the oceans and the atmosphere. As Marcia mentioned, I had the great opportunity to study applied mathematics. I was able to work in the physical sciences area, and actually hidden in my background, I actually audited a course from a very young, enthusiastic professor named Jim Baker. at Harvard many, many years ago. So, and my thesis was done on a tsunami run-up, very elementary, Stone Age models compared to what we use today. And the third element which I hope that I can help, that I bring to the mix of talent that we have within the scientific community, is the fact that I have worked in Washington for a number of years within the bureaucracy. I've been the requirements czar for the Navy. That's the guy who determines what kind of ships and airplanes we ought to buy, how big the Navy ought to be, what the mission requirements are, and then the guy who builds a strategic plan, how many dollars do you put against each thing, and then having to go get it from Congress and execute it. So I bring that talent with me, and I want to use it to the benefit of everyone here, and I need your help in doing that. So that's kind of what I bring to the mix and my background. Let me just say, and Marcia mentioned that too, I have been the president of CORE, the Consortium for Oceanographic Research and Education, for the past year, and that has been a very broadening education in getting caught back up in the issues that affect our community, the science community in general, and the ocean science community specifically. And so that I have gained acquaintance with a number of people in each of the agencies, which I think can be used to benefit. And I've had an opportunity to come out and visit many of the fine academic institutions that belong to CORE and are doing just really super research and very interesting research. And I'd love to spend my whole time up here talking about it, but that's not what I get paid to do, as I told you, from my talents. So I bring that with me. I'm hoping that I've tried to make a transition that's sort of on the fly and not drop anything as I moved from CORE to the administrator position at NOAA. And with that, let me talk through sort of a series of issues that I think are important to us. And this is not a series that I can put in a linear fashion. This is sort of circular. One feeds on the other. It's feedback. So where I start, you may say that should be at the end. Well, maybe it should be. But these are things that are tied together. Unfortunately, life is very complicated, as you all know, and systems are very complicated. But I guess the first thing that I wanted to talk about that has jumped up at me, particularly when I've been at CORE, is this issue of research and operational science, operational oceanography in my case, and as we've looked at CORE. First of all, NOAA I view as an operational agency that does research. And it's important that you have both of those things together that complement each other, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the research that we do in this country is marvelous. But in my view, we're at a point where many of these things that we're doing in research, and of course we have great examples of taking systems that are in research and taking them operational. But I really believe that we must figure out how to do that even better and more in the future. Some of the things like large-scale ocean observing and climate observing systems are going to require not only research components but operational components, and the ability of all the people in this audience to think through the process of getting from an individual PI and a wonderful project to something that can be used to bring in the data, the routine observations, the computing, the information technology to build products that we need to answer some of the major questions we have in society today. So that's a big issue. And I was taken today by a little, I came out on United Airlines. How many people flew on United Airlines? No, okay, see, and you remember what the movie was? Pay It Forward? Anybody? Yeah, Pay It Forward was the movie, okay? In that, Kevin Spacey, I won't spoil the movie. It's a good movie, by the way. Those of you who haven't seen it, it's worth buying the video to see it. Kevin Spacey is a social studies, 7th grade social studies teacher. And so he puts up on the board for his students, he puts up, first of all, he gives some tough talk about how they're going to be joining the world, and it's time to start thinking about things outside of just their narrow interests as budding young teenagers in 7th grade. My wife teaches 7th grade, by the way, so I get lots of 7th grade stories at home. So the assignment, he says, okay, this is not an assignment for homework tonight. This is a term assignment. which is good because it's a pretty tough one. And so he puts up this idea, and it's a good one. It says, think of an idea that can change the world, and put it into action. Very simple statement, but I would say to you that's what we need to do. Everybody in this audience here can do that, I think. You can think of the idea. The first part of that, can you think of the right idea? Well, we can talk about that. Putting it into action is tough. It really is tough. And the movie builds on that theory, or on that premise, and then goes through. But that's worthwhile for us to think about as well. Now, you just think about that. Let me go back and get back into this operational and research business. NOAA has an operational mission to forecast changes in climate on interannual, seasonal, decadal, centennial time scales, and I would propose that you simply cannot step up to the plate and produce routine operational forecasts with that statement I just made without having significant investment and an efficient coupling and management of the basic science and the research that supports building the systems that are going to do that for you. So there's a need in some areas to have that coordination and cooperation across lines within an agency, and I think NOAA does that well from what I have seen, and I want to build on that. And I offer example the El Nino work, which everybody in this audience is familiar with, and I'm not going to go through that, but that is an area where research was necessary to get it going, but yet is used in an operational sense, and we still do research, and we need to keep building that research. Now, I've said the word NOAA a lot, and I'm proud of NOAA, obviously. I'm proud to be the administrator of NOAA, but I want to point out that all the research in the world is not conducted in NOAA laboratories. I understand that. And I believe that while NOAA does great work, our success depends on the efficient employment of the entire scientific establishment. I believe that personally. I believe that research needs to be balanced and complementary. I believe that we need to keep the science base as strong as possible, and that partnerships between NOAA and academic research institutions I want that partnership to continue to improve as a source of knowledge for the good of the country. And I guess more importantly, as I've gone through this, my core hat, I believe that the people who do the work, no matter where they come from, should get the credit for their ingenuity and their enterprise. And I will work hard to make sure that happens. We must recognize and reward excellence wherever it's found, and we need to support it, and I will work hard to do that. On the other hand, I would say those that benefit from the support ought to be willing to acknowledge the help of other partners, whether they're federal agencies that help support the funding of those projects, or other partners from the private sector that provide in-kind support. Let me skip from that subject to, again, back to working together for the future, but talk about resources. I have been a resource manager, and that's the way I think. If people come into my office, they need to tell me how much it costs, how much time it's going to take, what the program looks like, what are the milestones, what they've done to assure it's executable, etc. So I think funding and I think money most of the time. And I think that all of us have to have that in mind as we do things. It's not, the policies and the concepts are good, but we have to think about how to carry it out. And the climate in Washington. Let's go resources, and you first think about the climate in Washington. But some of you are from the East Coast, and you probably know this as well as I do. But life has changed significantly since the 11th of September in terms of national priorities and the way people think about funding. The days of budget surpluses, nobody's talking about budget surpluses anymore. They're talking about how to live within what we have and not going too far into the red again. We have a war on terrorism. We have economic conditions which have declined significantly in the last year. We have a number of people in the administration who are working hard to figure out how to balance a budget that quite frankly has more requirements, as it always does, not new this year, than than are available, and trying to put it together. You have seen Sean O'Keefe being nominated to be the head of NASA. He came from the deputy director of the Office of Management Budget. I've worked with Sean when he was the controller at the Defense Department, and he certainly has the same thought that I do. He's interested in cost, schedule, and performance, and money and budgets very well, quite heavily, quite strongly. So we are going to have to work together to ensure that the right kinds of resources are allocated towards our issues, and that the next couple of years we will see some improvements and not backtracking. And I need your help. One man can't do all of this. Let me tell you a couple of things that I've learned on the money end of it. If you want new money, if you want new resources, first of all, there is no such thing as new money. Okay, it comes from somewhere else. It comes from competition, from other places. Obviously, as the administrator of NOAA, I would not like to see it come from competition within NOAA. I would like to see it come from competition outside of NOAA. You all, as a science community, should like to see it come from somewhere else other than the science community. So I think that ought to be one of your very strong interests. In this environment, I think that you're going to have to stick to these three rules, though. First of all, you're going to have to show internally to the agencies that help and other places, you're going to have to show that you can manage the resources that you have today. You're going to have to show a performance record that says, we know what we're doing and we've produced. And second of all, you're going to have a compelling need, and you're going to have to build an executable program that meets that need. You say, fine, I can do that. And you can. All of you can. There's no question about it. The third one is the really hard one, though. And that's that you have to create, or you have to satisfy what I would call a political imperative. And let me describe that to you a little bit. Again, let's go back to Kevin Spacey's think of a big idea. That's where you need to go. The real battle for resources takes place at a national level. It involves many players. It involves the public. It doesn't involve just me, obviously. It's above my pay grade. It has to be an event or a circumstance which is so large at scale that it becomes a national priority, capable of jumping above all of the other wonderful things that we do with our national treasure. And that's a tough criteria to meet. There's a lot of luck involved here, and a lot of things. And obviously, September 11th is one of those political imperatives. There's a lot of things that have jumped up in that priority list on the national, the national list because of September 11th. Now, if you're not doing that, if you haven't figured out how to do that, then you're basically playing at the margin. You're working margin within what you have, and that's not a good place to be, I can tell you. So I would like to encourage everyone's support in thinking about how I believe that a lot of things that we do are political imperatives, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Again, I'm not in a circular talk here, but let's grade how we're doing. I was looking at the Washington Post yesterday morning, and the lineup. I looked at the headlines. They give things a Washington Post test. Here are the headlines from yesterday's Washington Post. Deadline passes for surrender by Al-Qaeda. Kandahar bombs hit their marks. U.S. indicts suspect in September 11 attacks. Conferees agree on education package. 2 nuclear experts brief bin Laden, Pakistanis say. Army set to retire from the House. Fed trims rates but cites gains. Did you hear anything that I just said that indicates support for some of the wonderful scientific research projects you'd care to see increase in funding? I didn't either. Okay. Now, I will say that before I get too far, I'm not trying to accuse people of neglecting this area. I think there's wonderful outreach going on, but I think that we need to redo this and step up the level just a little bit based on where we are. And I think NOAA could do more on recognition and important issues. I give you, my example is that I talked to a couple of my friends. They said, "What are you doing now?" And I said, "Well, I have the pleasure and privilege of becoming a NOAA administrator." And they said, "NOAA? What's that? I thought he was the guy who built an ark." So even those who have heard the term don't know what the letters stand for, even. So I've got a lot of work to do on my part, and we all need to work together to get that recognition. Now, I cheated a little bit. We flunked the Washington Post front page test, but we did do fairly well, because on page 11 were the headlines, and it's the article I'm sure all of you saw, a warning on climate change. Pollution's effects could be sudden. The Academy report that was cited the other day, that you could have a significant change within a decade in temperature, which is pretty exciting to, not exciting that I like the idea, but it's exciting to get that news out there and get people interested again in the things that are really important. We have a lot of things to do, and here's how I would categorize them from think big again, Kevin Spacey's comment. And I think some of these things either are or can be or will be national priorities or political imperatives, whatever you want to call them. National security. Everything you do actually contributes to national security, so that's a broad term. That's a very broad term, and I won't, because of time, I'm not going to get into that. But homeland defense is clearly a national imperative. All of the agencies and most of the science that we do, we can think about things where that can help in homeland defense. Climate change, very important, and that one is in the paper at least, and it will continue to be. Environmental monitoring and stewardship, such things as coastal zone development and management, and there's a list of things that go underneath there. Ecosystem understanding and management, fisheries come into that, as well as the other pieces of our ecosystem, and there's a good deal of interest in that right now. Energy, what it means, what are we going to do for energy sources, what's it going to do to the environment, how are we going to deal with that. Health of the economy impacts. I'm a big believer in looking at the full picture. You can't just look at the impact in one part, in one part of the ocean, one part of the atmosphere. You've got to look at the impact on humans. You've got to look at the impact on society. You have to do analysis across the spread of these issues so that we ensure we have a balanced debate and we look like we're taking into account all the factors that are involved in that particular issue. Not just I'm coming from this is my position, bang the table and say we got to do that, and forget about all the other pieces that go with it. Impact on human health, extremely important. I don't want to say that's the end of it, but it is. But those are big issues to which all of us contribute and which the agencies contribute. Let me talk about what happened after September 11th. There are things that the agencies have started to do. Now, NOAA expertise was brought to bear. This happened obviously before I came on board, and special teams were put into place. There will always be a critical need for such things as accurate weather and oceanographic information. Obviously, it helps with transportation, knowing harbors, safe transit in and out of our harbors, understanding what's going on there, deciding where biological chemicals could be transported, looking at the plumes and potential scenarios. So there's a lot of things that can be directly applied that we do, but in reality, to me, that's not enough, because that's thinking inside the box. That's the stuff we're already doing. Let's start thinking of things that we're not doing that could be helpful. Projects that we think are very important, but will be equally important and could serve another purpose on a larger front. For example, large-scale ocean and atmospheric observing systems. They can be used for many purposes. If you've built a network, if you've built a computing system, if you've built lots of sensors, the sensors can detect a variety of things. Why not think about how they work in terms of solving some of the homeland defense issues? That leads to the next issue, which is the fact that if you go back to my other short list, you're going to look at it and say there's no one agency that can do all of that, and that's right, there isn't. Those topics are big. They're going to require cross-government cooperation, and I believe strongly in working hard to build serious cross-agency coordination and integration. We must do that, and we must succeed better than we have in the past to do it. Again, back to Kevin Spacey. Think of an idea that can change the world. Most of those ideas are going to be above individual agencies and above individual scientists that are here today. One more thought, because I'm running out of time here, and I don't want to take all this time with my rambling. I'd rather have dialogue with you. I want to mention that I think that the Ocean Commission, Ocean Policy Commission that's going on is very important to us, particularly in ocean science, but it's important for the atmospheric sciences as well, and obviously very important to NOAA, and I think most of you in the audience would agree with that. That's going on right now. Admiral Jim Watkins is the chair of that commission. If you don't know about this, you ought to know about it. He's one of 16 distinguished committee members who are on a mission over the next 18 months to evaluate and reevaluate and report on our nation's ocean policy. This is the chance. The Commission has had their first 2 meetings already, and then they are now moving out for regional meetings. I would encourage all of you in the organizations that you represent to take note of those meetings in your areas, to organize with other folks who are going to present and support those meetings, and get in there and talk to them. You are the folks who know how to really describe some of the challenges in detail that I have talked about only at a glossy level. It's important. Remember that this opportunity only comes up once every 30 years, so don't forget about it. The Stratton Commission, the last time we did this 30 years ago, it led to the creation of NOAA and a number of other things that we have lived with. Some good, some that could be improved, and certainly some things that ought to change because the challenges of this next century are going to be different. Let me quit right now and tell you that, again, I am very grateful for having this opportunity to talk to you, introduce myself to you. I greatly respect the knowledge, the skill, and the hard work that is represented in this audience and by the organization. Certainly on behalf of the Commerce Department and on behalf of NOAA, I thank each and every one of you for the work that you do, and I encourage you to keep doing this. I want to encourage partnerships and dialogue to see that we build a strong science portfolio and we take those good ideas into the operational world. Together, I believe there's no challenge that we cannot meet. Thank you very much.